Daf Yomi tractate Bava Batra, page 72b. Top of the page with the words Ve'ela Kashya Ahoil V'yoinkin Mistei Hegdish. The Gemara concludes stating difficulty, but this is difficult, as Rabbi Shimon himself said. The he grafted carob tree and the sycamore trunk are considered. The grafted carob tree and the sycamore trunk are consecrated along with the field, since they draw their nutrients from a consecrated field, indicating that one who consecrates acts generously and does not retain the land around the trees for himself. El Rabbi Shimon דבריהם דרבנן כמר לו דדידי כי אחד דמויכר בעין רוע מויכר מקדיש נמי בעין רוע מקדיש ושיוער משער לדידחו אוידו לי מיha דלא הקדיש אלא חרוב המורכב וסדן השקמה ואמר לרבנן לא שנם. The Gemara explains, rather, it must be understood that when Rabbi Shimon stated his ruling in the Mishnah, he was not expressing his own opinion. Rather, he was speaking to the rabbis in accordance with their statement. And he meant to say, according to my opinion, just as one who sells sparingly, so too one who consecrates sparingly and retains for himself land to nurture the trees. Therefore, when one consecrates a field, even the sycamore and carob tree are not consecrated along with it. But, according to your opinion, that one who consecrates does so generously, agree with me. At least, that one who consecrates a field has consecrated only the grafted carob and the sycamore trunk, because they draw nutrients from consecrated ground, but he has not consecrated the other items that are not integral parts of the field. And the rabbi said to him, there is no difference between the two in this regard, since the one who consecrates an item does so generously, everything found in the field is consecrated. B'mai okimtale k'Rabbi Shimon ema seifa v'lo od ela afilu higdish es ha'ilonois v'chazav higdish es ha'karka כשהוא פוידה es ha'ilonois v'shovehen v'choizer u'poide beis zera choimer soirim v'chamishim b'shekel kasif. The Gemara returned to the Braita that it had concluded was taught according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, and asks, in accordance with which opinion did you interpret the Braita discussing consecrated property? It was interpreted in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. But say the last clause, and moreover, even if one consecrates the trees and then afterward he consecrates the land, when he redeems them, he redeems the trees separately in accordance with their worth, and then he redeems the land according to the standard rate, where an area fit for sowing a homer of barley seed is redeemed for 50 silver shekels. V'i Rabbi Shimon leizil baso pidyoin b'nipalku agav arayhu Deha Shaminan Rabbi Shimon leizil baso pidyoin. And if the Braita is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, let him follow the character of the field at the time of its redemption, and so the trees should be redeemed along with their land, as at the time of their redemption both the trees and the land are consecrated. As we have already heard that Rabbi Shimon follows the time of redemption. In other words, he determines the price at which a field is redeemed based on the time it is being redeemed. The Tanya that we learned in a Braise. Minayin lokeach shadel me'aviv v'hikdisha v'achar kach meis aviv minayin shetehei lefanav k'sadach achuzo tamad lo imar v'imes edei miknosoi asher lo misdei achuzo soi. שדה שאין ראויה להיות שדה אחוזו יוצא זו שראויה להיות שדה אחוזו דברי רבי יהודה ורבי שמעון. As it is taught in a Batra, from where is it derived that with regard to one who purchases a field from his father and consecrates it, and afterward his father dies, so the field would now be considered his as an inheritance? From where is it derived that with regard to its redemption, it should be considered before him as an ancestral field and not a field that he purchased? The verse states about a field that was purchased, and if he sanctifies to the Lord a field that he has bought, which is not of his ancestral fields, Leviticus 27:22. The verse speaks specifically of a field that is not fit at the time of its consecration to be an ancestral field, meaning that he never could have inherited it in the future. The specification excludes this field that was fit to be an ancestral field from this halakha, since eventually it would have become his through inheritance, even had he not purchased it. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Meir Omer, Minayin lokeach sedeh me'aviv, umeis aviv v'achar kach hikdish, Minayin shetehe lefanav b'kassadeh achuzo, Talmud lomar v'im es sedeh miknaso, asher loi misdeh achuzaso, sedeh she'enu sedeh achuza yatzasa zu, shehi sedeh achuzo. The Batra continues. Rabbi Meir learns a different halakha from this verse, and he says, from where is it derived in the case of one who purchases a field from his father, and his father dies, and afterward he consecrates the field? From where is it derived that it should be considered before him like an ancestral field? The verse states, and if he sanctifies to the Lord a field that he has bought, which is not of his ancestral fields. The verse refers specifically to a field that is not now an ancestral field at the time of its consecration. This specification excludes this field, as after the death of the father, it is an ancestral field. Ve'ilu Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon hechid demeis aviv v'achar kach hikdisha lo tzrichi kra ki tzrich kra hechid hikdisha v'achar kach meis aviv. But according to Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon, a verse is not required to teach that. In a case where his father dies and afterwards he consecrates the field, it is consecrated to be an ancestral field, and this is obvious. A verse is required only to teach the halakha in a case where he consecrates the field after having bought it and afterward his father dies. Okay. Manalahu ima hakikra amar ema k'Rabbi Meir hu dasa elohu mishum de'azli basar pidyon. The Gemara asks him, where did Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon arrive at this conclusion? If they derive it only from this verse, you can say that the verse came to be interpreted in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, as opposed to the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. There is no clear proof from the verse to support either opinion. Rather, is it not due to the fact that they follow the time of the redemption, and at the time of the redemption, the father is dead, and the field is the son's ancestral field that's currently in the possession of the temple treasury. Amr Nachman Bar Yitzchak L'Olam Ba'alma Rabbi Yehuda Bar Shimon Lo Azli Basar Pidyon. Yachal Kra Ashkechu Drush Im Kim Tov Krav Im Es Sedei Miknaso Asher Lo Achuzaso Inami Sedei Achuzaso Ma Asher Lo Misdei Achuzaso Es She'eno Ru'uya Lios Sedei Achuz Yetzazu She'ru'uya Lios Sedei Achuz. Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, actually, I can say to you that generally speaking, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon do not follow the time of the redemption, and therefore their ruling here is not based on this premise. But here they found a verse and interpreted it as if the verse is to be understood as we explain Rabbi Meir, then let the verse write, and if he sanctifies to the Lord a field that he has brought, which is not his ancestral field, let it write, which is not his ancestral field. What is meant by the expression which is not his ancestral field, Leviticus 27:22, it means that a field that is not fit to ever be an ancestral field is considered a purchased field. This that excludes this field, as it is fit to be an ancestral field. Based on this explanation, the Braita that addresses one who consecrates trees can in fact be understood to be in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Amar Rav Huna, Charuv Hamurkav V'San Shikma V'Toras Ilan Alav V'Toras Karka Alav Toras Ilan Alav V'Echid Agdish Oi Zabin Shnei Ilan Alav V'Hai Yesh Lo Karka Toras Karka Alav Delo Zabin Agav Ara. Rav Huna says a grafted carob and sycamore tree. Okay, just a little bit left, man. Be strong. You can do it. God, please help me get through this. I'm tired. Rav Huna says the grafted carob tree and a sycamore tree both have status of a tree and the status of land. You know, Sephardics, they do the slichos the whole month of Elul. I'm not going to lie. Didn't sleep very well last night. When you don't sleep well, when I don't sleep well, the Daf Yomi show must go on. Rav Huna says the grafted carob and sycamore tree trunk both have the status of a tree and the status of land. Each of these has the status of a tree. So if one consecrates or buys two trees, in this carob tree or sycamore, he has consecrated or bought the land between them. As the sycamore carob tree joins with the other two trees to form a unit of trees, of three trees that take their land with them, and each has the status of land, as is not sold with the land, as explained in the Mishnah, that one who sells a field is not sold a grafted carob or any or a sycamore trunk that is in the field. The Amr of Huna Omer Sheyesh Lo Sasayim Toras Omer Alav Toras Gadish Alav. Hashem will strengthen me to do this. Verstehst Yiddish? Toras Omer Alav Vishnei Amorim Shecha Biziman HaGeulah Shecha Shnaim Hu Einan Shecha. And Rav Huna says in similar fashion, a large sheaf of grain that contains two se'ah, as both the status of a sheaf and the status of a heap. With regard to the halachos of forgotten sheaves, picking up the sheaves, forgotten sheaves, that must be left for the poor. It has the status of a sheaf, and the principle is that two sheaves, we shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, that shall be inadvertently left in the field, are considered forgotten sheaves that must be left for the poor, whereas three sheaves need not be left for the poor, but rather the owner of the field may go back and take them for himself. In this regard, two se'ah sheaf is considered. This one's going to go down the records, I'm telling you. Batra 72b, man. Sheaf is considered one sheaf. So if it forgot two sheaves, and also this sheaf that contains two se'ah, the three together are three sheaves, and not considered forgotten sheaves that must be left for the poor. Toras Gadish. Ramamish done with the finish line here. Toras Gadish Alav Ditznan Omer Sheyesh Bo Sasayim Shicho Ein Shicha, as it has the status of a heathen, as we learned in the Mishnah Peah 6. In the case of a sheaf that contains two se'ah, if one forgets it in a field, it is not considered a forgotten sheaf that must be left for the poor, as its size and importance grants it the status of a heap rather than a sheaf. Amar Rabba Bar Chana. Oh, very messianic. Rabba Bar Chana, by the way, is, I don't know why, it's a mystery, but it's messianic. That's just Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Reish Lakish. It's usually Amar Rabba Bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rabbi Bar Mechaber Shlagish Charov Amorka V'Sedan Shikma Banu Lemachloikis Rabbi Menachem Bar Yossi V'Rabanan. Were we holding on time? Oh. Rabbi Bar Barchana says that Rish Lakish says, with regard to whether a grafted carob and sycamore trunk are consecrated along with the field, that when it's consecrated, we have arrived at the dispute between Rabbi Menachem Bar Yossi and the rabbis. As Rabbi Menachem Bar Yossi rules that they are not consecrated, whereas the rabbis rule they are. Made it. Baruch Hashem. Thank God. Finish the daf.